An FFPC main event draft from the 101. That's what we're doing today on Stealing Bananas. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the Stealing Signals newsletter at bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Shawn Siegele. You can find all of his great work over at RotoViz. I'm attacking you with so many words right now. What is up? How you doing, Shawn?
Good. This is our chance to draft in the main event from the 101. And Ben, I mean, you get Ja'Marr Chase. You probably don't get any of the guys coming back in round two. The main thing you're trying to do when you get the 101 is to not mess it up. But the easiest way to mess it up is to try to not mess it up. So we've got to go after it here and make some big picks, take some big swings.
I love that. I love the don't mess it up. So let's do something absolutely absurd. Excuse me. We should do some really crazy things throughout. The 2-3 turn is not fun. Once you get to this point that we're about 3 picks away. We did take Chase. We are in the second round as we pick it up. Brock Bowers, McBride have gone. All of the running backs through Bucky Irving have gone, including Jonathan Taylor and Devon Achane went, and Chase Brown goes higher than this, and Derrick Henry and those guys. The top 9 receivers are all gone. So the best receivers on the board: AJ Brown, Ladd McConkey. We're still 2 picks away. George Kittle's on the board. I've seen people play him at the 2-3 turn. He's probably not my favorite way to play it, and I do think there's some easier or some options at the later turns from this side of the board. Maybe the 6-7 turn, it can be a little interesting. We talked on last night's stream that if you don't take the tight ends at the 4-5 turn, the 5-6 turn, when you're in the back side of the board, that a lot go between the 6 and the 7 before the 7-8 turn. When you're at the back side of the board, we would be in that run on the front side of the board in the 6-7 turn would be a consideration. Laporta at the 4-5 turn may be a consideration. AJ Brown does go, and Ladd McConkey goes. So now we're sort of down another tier at wide receiver as well. You get into the JSN, and I think McMillan picks. Travion Henderson's been going about 303. For me, he's an easy one to just pull up to 212 here. Is Kittle a consideration for you? Where do you go from here? I'm assuming Henderson.
I was thinking that Kittle and Lamar Jackson are interesting picks to kind of lock down the onesies with Ja'Marr Chase. I think that going Henderson McMillan is kind of fun. Certainly you can play Jaden Daniels. Those guys would probably be the leading contenders for me. Tight end does get a little tricky if you don't take Kittle, but I don't think there's any pressure to take him.
Yeah, I just don't know that his ceiling is as high as I want it to be. We're at 13 seconds on the first pick. Is there a pick that you like the most out of all of those?
Let's go with Henderson here and just have that piece locked in. Then I think it's a question of essentially Lamar Jackson versus McMillan. I mean, it's a huge reach for McMillan. We've got him a lot. I don't know if we need him here, but it also is going to be pretty unique if we go with Ja'Marr Chase, Henderson, and McMillan. Uniqueness isn't the thing you're really going for. You're going for the most points. And so how do you balance that? Who do you prefer?
I think we could skip on McMillan. We already pulled up Henderson. I like your idea of getting an elite onesie. If you want to do Kittle over Lamar, I think I would narrow it down to Lamar versus Kittle as I heard you talk through it. If you want to do Kittle, we could still take another tight end later and do a tandem. So we do grab Lamar. As I was talking through what I was hearing from you and giving you that feedback, you went ahead and clicked him with about 10 seconds left. I think that's a very fun pick. Lamar Jackson, I mean, we love Jaden Daniels, and I think you can take Jaden Daniels as the QB1. I have them in the same tier. It's hard to overstate how perfectly for fantasy scoring Lamar Jackson's profile already is. The way that Jaden Daniels can beat him is through volume, because I do think the Commanders could be fast-paced enough to run more plays, but he still then has to be so efficient, and he's probably going to be because he's insanely good. Just putting him in a tier with Lamar Jackson is, I think, a massive compliment to a year 2 player and what he's already done and where he's going to go. Lamar Jackson had 41 passing TDs and 4 interceptions last year. He threw for over 4,000 yards. He ran for the most yards in the NFL. And the things that he did as an actual real-life quarterback that I talked about when we did the projections, his sack rate cratered last year. His pocket, and so he still extends plays. His sack rate cratered and his scramble rate didn't crater. He extended plays better and more intelligently within his system, he somehow got even better at navigating the pocket. His sack rate was never like bad. It became meaningfully below average, above average, however you want to say that. Low, like he's taking fewer sacks than average. It's an above average skill. His scramble rate did drop a little bit as well because he was getting the ball out on time more within, second year in the Todd Monken system. So many weapons there. You've been talking up Bateman and Isaiah Likely as ways to play that offense. Part of the reason I haven't loved them is Zay Flowers had a great year too. They talked up him all offseason as a vertical guy, as a ball in hand guy, and talked about how he can get the ball more because he can do so many things with the ball in his hand. But then what they kept saying every time they talked about Flowers or any of these other guys is there's only one ball. That was their phrase all offseason. Monken and Harbaugh. They want to get the ball to Flowers more, though. They want to get the ball to Bateman more. They want to get the ball to Likely more. They want to get the ball to Andrews more. They now have Keaton Mitchell to add to Justice Hill as these dynamic, potentially receiving backs. Mitchell, I think, may be able to contribute in that way a little bit, but Hill already was and will. Even guys like Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker look like they could contribute some splash plays and things. And yet all these guys have all these great metrics and great separation scores and all these things. And you do the math on it and you go, what's the common denominator? I mean, maybe the Ravens are just amazing at building the greatest, most underrated receiving core in the league. Or maybe there's something that Lamar Jackson does, causes defenses to do pre-snap, does post-snap, as he navigates the pocket, as he extends plays, that just allows his guys to always have leverage and always create separation and always be in the right spots. It doesn't all necessarily matter for fantasy. The 41 passing TDs matters for fantasy. The only 4 interceptions matters for fantasy. It's not that many negative points, but the first 4,000 passing yard season of his career does matter for fantasy. Some of the things do matter for fantasy, but I love when we're paying up this high for a guy whose scoring profile is perfect for fantasy, that we also are paying up for a guy who is playing the position. It's not just like a fantasy cheat code. He's playing the position so incredibly well. I don't know how defenses are going to be able to stop him.
Exactly right. And you were saying, maybe it's the group around him, maybe it's Lamar Jackson. I think the synergy at this point is very, very unique, historically unique. And you're looking at a Lamar Jackson unlocked, unleashed, but you're looking at him as a developing player and a player who's continued to get better, but a player who early in his career didn't have that great of a team around him, didn't have that aggressive a mindset on offense. You think about the coordinator change, and then it's just night and day what he's throwing to now and the variety of options. And I think that variety, you look at what the Bills have done, and the Bills are saying, we don't need good players. We're going to have variety. We're going to force you to cover a lot of guys who are okay. And then with Josh Allen, you still can't stop us. And that was basically correct. The Ravens have taken it to the next level, and they're saying, we're going to do exactly that same thing, but with good players. And I mean, that leads to more scoring for Lamar Jackson, both from a full season perspective and when you think about what he could do in a potential 3-week run. He may be the guy that you absolutely have to have in a way that even the first round picks are not.
And as we were talking through whether to pull up McMillan there, one of the things I was thinking was, those early drafts, we got Henderson in a draft at 5'10". Is that right, Sean? If I'm remembering that right.
We've got him at some good prices.
We got him in the 5th round. So we're taking him at 2-3. There's some chase teams that got him at the 4-5. And then that may also be true for McMillan, that he was falling to the 4-5. So there are probably main event chase teams that, for people who really like the rookies, that took Henderson and McMillan at the 4-5 turn and also have 2-3 picks. I think it's fine to pull up Henderson. I think you're probably in a tough shape if you'd pull up both Henderson and McMillan there. That's sort of what I was thinking through, is you may be 2 players behind some of those other builds. I like getting Jackson there. He has been, he's not even the QB1 on average. It is Josh Allen in the last few days, looking at the main events and the big gorillas using the RotoViz tools. And so Lamar has been falling further into the 3rd round. ADP suggests that Kittle would have been a decision for us there. Josh Jacobs, they went in the picks right after us. Trayvon Henderson, 307. I'm looking at both the big gorillas and the mains. In basically all of the mains I've done lately, when you look at both, you're getting a little bit more of the big gorilla. When basically all the mains I've done, I've seen Henderson going in the front half of the third round. We take him at 212, ahead of Josh Jacobs, ahead of Kyron Williams, ahead of Kenneth Walker, Omarion Hampton, James Cook. Is that too aggressive? Are we too far out over our skis?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it is going to be a situation where a lot of teams have him at a better value. You articulated how they may have him at the next turn with Jamar Chase. We got him last night at 310. You're still going to get him later. I like getting him in different areas of the draft with different first round picks. You look at how he's set up from a talent perspective, and you look at how that offense will likely function. One of the things that I continue to hammer with him versus the running backs who go immediately before him by ADP, the ones who went immediately after him today, is that those guys are not going to catch passes. At least everything that they have done in the offenses recently suggests they're not going to catch passes. And for players like Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams, you probably are not going to be very efficient.
We
They just have to have a lot more touches, right, to make that work than you have to have with Travion Henderson. So you position yourself in a very positive direction both ways, where you don't need as much, but if you get that, then you outperform by even more.
We are in the afternoon time slot on Thursday. Before we go into too much more, want to note that in the morning time slot, Friday morning, starting at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, Sean and I on the RotoViz YouTube channel will be drafting a marathon. We did this last year, had a lot of fun with it. A marathon of big gorilla drafts on FFPC on the hour, each hour at 8, 9, 10, 11. We will be starting drafts. We will have multiple going at the same time, probably as many as 3 at various points. Trying to talk through different builds all at the same time while recording a live stream. We had one auto pick last year when we did this 4 straight hours thing, and we'll try to avoid that this year, but come hang with us on the RotoViz radio channel. And if you're listening to this after, because that is tomorrow, go back and watch it on YouTube. I'm sure it will be a lot of fun speaking from the past about the future. Sam Laporta goes there in the 4th. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt goes 406 in this draft to a drafter that had started McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker. So 4 straight running backs. As far as a kind of an update on how this draft has been going, we saw Bijan, Gibbs, Genty at 104, Barkley at 105, Bowers, and then McCaffrey 107. The drafter in the 8 hole gets CeeDee Lamb as a wide receiver 2, comes back with Drake London at the 205. Lamb, London, already a really nice combination. Then they go JSN in the 3rd and McMillan in the 4th, a pure 0 RB with 4 straight receivers. And then the drafter at the 112. Same deal, Neighbors, Brian Thomas at the turn, then Harrison, Garrett Wilson at the next turn. The drafter at the 111, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, and then went Daniels Worthy, so another 0 RB, but with an elite QB in there. You're seeing multiple 0 RB builds in rooms at times. This one is the whole back half of the draft has taken just 3 running backs in the final 5 draft slots total through 4 rounds. And in the front half, you have a drafter who has taken 4 straight, including Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt through 4 rounds. You have another drafter here at the 104 who started with Genty, went Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, 3 straight running backs to start from them. This has been a fun room. I love getting into these high stakes rooms where people go get their guys. JCM goes 1 pick ahead of Tyreek Hill, and then Laporta and McLaurin come off right after that. What a fun room so far, right?
We have a whole bunch of teams that don't need any running backs. We have a whole bunch of teams who don't need any wide receivers. We are on the robust running back side of the board. George Pickens goes there, Ben, which I think makes these picks pretty easily RJ Harvey and Jameson Williams. What else are you seeing?
Well, I wanted to take Pickens. That's why I said tough. No, RJ Harvey and Jameson Williams are my highest ranked running back and receiver. They're both the last targets in their tier from my targets and fades element. We already have a quarterback, so we're not taking like Jalen Hurts. We're not taking TJ Hawkinson this far ahead. Laporta did already go in the 4th, but tends to go 5-10 in recent drafts. Hawkinson, a 6th rounder. There's nothing else that I could have been seeing, and you did click both Harvey and Williams there. Talk about Jameson Williams. I've heard some negative thoughts about him in recent days. What do you expect from a guy who, was a little bit boom busty last year? We saw the explosiveness, several 20-point games, certainly has the ceiling, but they've been talking about using him maybe more traditionally, I think, this year. Do you think we're going to get a little bit more stability? Not that stability is all that matters, because it really isn't, but do you think we're going to get more consistency with the targets out of him this year?
I don't even necessarily know that it matters. I mean, you want to feel comfortable that one of your early picks isn't going to torpedo you on any given week. And yet, we can be overconfident on how even the really good players are going to do from that perspective. It's interesting because on one of the recent streams, we got a comment that, why are we so high on Worthy? Best case scenario is that he's Jameson Williams. And you're like, okay. I mean, having both of these guys be in a position where they are emerging, I mean, Worthy and Williams and Jaden Reed were the 3 sort of non-Debo Samuel receivers who a year ago, because they all have such incredible speed, they rush for over 100 yards. When you include the playoffs, you have the potential for rushing touchdowns. One of the things that also makes you aware of is that these teams want to get the ball in hand for those 3 players. So you're being given all of these opportunities for run after the catch on manufactured targets. And then with all 3, when you think back to Jaden Reed in week 17 as a rookie, where he broke all of the tournaments, and in what I believe was the last game, he comes out and he has all of these points on a Sunday night, doesn't even finish the game because I think he gets injured late, but he's just running free. He's destroying the opposing defense over the middle. And you think about Worthy's ability to do that, what he did in the Super Bowl, but not just that, what he did down the stretch of last season. You think about Jameson Williams and the kind of joker element that you're always referring to with the Broncos, how he gave that to the Lions last year. One of the things that I think I even pointed out, or was thinking about pointing out in the Worthy article, when you look at the emptiness of Worthy's deep targets last year, is that that's how it started for Jameson Williams as well. And there was this narrative around him that either because he was a little undisciplined, obviously comes in with that injury, then he has the suspension. The Lions don't always seem that happy with him from a practice and rehab perspective. Sometimes that's because the guys are lazy. Sometimes it's because they're still very young and maybe haven't fully adjusted to just how hard you have to work to be the very top level of NFL athlete that you can be. Those things appear to be in the rear view with him. And then last year, Jared Goff didn't miss him like he had missed him previously. You think about how that kind of washes back on Worthy, and we're like, okay, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is much less likely to. I'm thinking about the way I need to construct this sentence. We have more confidence in Patrick Mahomes to stop missing Worthy than maybe Jared Goff, like going back to missing Jameson Williams. But this idea that Williams wasn't useful because he's a one-trick vertical pony and that Jared Goff can't throw those passes, we were sort of disabused of that notion last season. Jameson Williams last year, I think, clipped Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of yards after the catch. You look at what Jameson Williams can do if you execute all the different pieces, where he's a manufactured touch guy, he's a vertical guy, he can score the long touchdowns, and those long touchdowns, Ben, just having some exposure to that, it helps your weekly upside so much. But then also the rushing there, in a lot of ways, he's probably the most insulated of any player on their team from what happens with the rest of the guys. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that his median outcome is the highest or that he's the most valuable. I mean, still certainly that's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But in terms of thinking through how all of the individual players interact, and even if you think there's some risk of Isaac Tesla coming in and causing some problems, Jameson Williams is probably the guy where his opportunities, his range of outcomes at the price, I think that you can be comfortable that that is going to be a foundation piece of this Detroit Lions offense as we go forward.
That was incredible. I feel like you just narrated a Shawn Siegele article to us, and we're still only at the other turn. We're picking at the 101 in a slow room. I already did this earlier with Lamar Jackson, where I took us through the whole third round. We're gonna have to do. We once got a piece of feedback on our podcast, Sean, that it's like 2 solo pods where we just talk back and forth to each other, and then it just abruptly ends like without much reasoning behind it. I can't remember the specific comment, but it was one of my favorites. I looked it up for the Reddit AMA we recently did, and quoted the feedback that we had gotten because it was so good. I think we're gonna have to keep doing that in today's stream. I mean, we need to like get AI going for us, and so like you could just take everything you just said and make that into a post for the site. I mean, that would be perfect. It was so well articulated in terms of why to be in on Jameson Williams, which I loved hearing and thinking through, and then also the whole overarching theme of what it means to be on a player like that and how that relates to somebody like Xavier Worthy and others. TJ Hawkinson goes at 603, Sean. At the 6-7, we've got Tyler Warren coming. Oh, he goes very next pick. I was going to say comes off the board at 607, probably not going to make it to the 6-7 turn. He goes at 604. We have David Njoku, who tends to go at 6'11". We have Evan Ingram at 704, Mark Andrews later in the 7th, Tucker Kraft, and Colston Loveland in the 8th. May not make it back to us in the 8th. And I think at that point, you're kind of in a tough spot. Jake Ferguson goes right at the 8-12. The other names with ADPs beyond the 8-9 turn in order: Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, Brenton Strange, etc. This would be an argument for why we should have just taken George Kittle, because there's a possibility we miss out on all of these 6-7 turns. I've seen Warren slide in the 6. I thought maybe he would be an option, but now that Hawkinson and Warren go back to back here, and I'm really hoping Evan Ingram makes it back to us. I've been telling you I'm pretty into him. Are you comfortable with him at the 6-7 turn?
I think that's the pretty clear selection. I think it's a receiver with Evan Ingram. Looking at the last handful of days, I think the last 3 days here, Ingram is going 704. The drafter right in front of us, who does not have a tight end, is mostly emphasizing ADP values in terms of building out a team. And so might not be called to select Ingram before the turn. David Njoku is still out there and still has a higher ADP.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter was one of the players I thought might be interesting. The other ones are sort of our old standbys, where Jerry Judy and Chris Olave are interesting at this turn. The wild card would be a Matthew Golden.
Matthew Golden, with the Jaden Reed news, he has a stress fracture. And, based on some of the quotes and some of the Twitter docs, and I've been spending some time trying to parse it this morning, Sean, it's not great. Most of the docs are saying stress fractures, you need to give it time. There's a huge re-injury risk. It's a Jones fracture. We know that this has derailed seasons for guys like Julio Jones, Des Bryant before. And then Jaden Reed's comment is like, I don't care. I'm going to play through it. I think I'm Superman. And so, I don't remember what his exact comment was, but there's some speculation from some of the Twitter docs. Maybe it's not that serious. It sounds concerning. It sounds more like he's just not worried about it. Oh, Kelsey was still out there as well. I missed that, but he's a tight end 5. He had been the slider behind Hawkinson at 6 and Warren at 7. So Kelsey does go there. There's only one more drafter before us that doesn't have a tight end. The next ADP tight end is Njoku. Cautiously optimistic right now, although this drafter has taken Kittle, may double tap. The McBride drafter has already taken 2 with Hawkinson. It's tight end premium. There's 2 flexes. You can certainly take multiple tight ends. But yeah, the Jaden Reed stuff has been disheartening. I have a lot of Jaden Reed, and it sounds to me like it's pretty serious. Evan Ingram does make it back to us. Isaiah Pacheco and Roma Dunze are the 2 picks right before us there. I am Judy is the top receiver on my board, but And I mean, I still think he's multiple rounds undervalued and is somebody that's awesome to take. But I'm pretty open to the idea of getting Golden. It's not Olave. I wouldn't bother you with Olave here. It's either, if you wanted, I'll let you decide if you want to do Judy here. We only have Chase and Jameson Williams. The stability of Judy with the maybe more volatile nature and some of Williams' scoring is pretty nice. You did grab Judy there as I was saying that. Golden does feel like a pretty fun swing there, though. I mean, we could have went either way, right? He goes one pick behind us.
He does go with the next pick. I think his vertical ability in an offense that has demonstrated, certainly not so much in 2024, but you think back to the heights of 2023, a clear-cut top 5 passing offense over the second half of that season. It's unfortunate that so many things have already conspired against the Packers. You think about that debut game last season where they looked like they were going to be such a fun team, and then you have the Jordan Love injury, you have Jaden Reed himself getting dinged up, never really back on the same page and going throughout the course of the whole season. Matthew Golden benefits from the lack of teammate competition in some ways. This is a team betting on the Packers to an extent. They're out of the 2-hole where they took Jacobs at the little bit of a discount, since we always pass on Jacobs. Get Jacobs to the 302, come back, you reach a tiny little bit on Matthew Golden at 702. Even with how much they have talked him up, we are in a range where there's just still such good veterans available. Now, why is there a difference between that and what we did at 212 and 412 with Henderson and Harvey? The scoring profiles are different. And the same thing we were talking about with Henderson and what he gives you versus those running backs in round 3 is similar to what Harvey gives you when contrasted with Chuba Hubbard, who goes quickly after him, Breece Hall later in round 5. Breece Hall, obviously a massive faller. Isaiah Pacheco a little bit later, coming back in 6. At the receiver position, we're talking about established veterans who are likely to get a ton of targets. And I mean, Jerry Judy, someone who is a much better prospect than Matthew Golden, and people certainly disagree with me on this. I think in some ways justifiably. Pat had some interesting notes when I was on ship chasing with them, although we did take him and they were fine with going that direction in that draft. But Judy, the route running before the catch, the yards after the catch, and then I continue to be very fired up about Dylan Gabriel. Now, that runs the risk of the same thing we talk about being dangerous, where I love Dylan Gabriel's profile. I love the fact that the Browns clearly wanted him and not Shedeur Sanders. You know, I have this little bit of a controversy where supposedly Kevin Stefanski didn't want Sanders at all, didn't want to deal with that. Gabriel is his guy. Then you have the second preseason game where Gabriel looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. You have the third preseason game where he looks solid and just throws with incredible anticipation, and Shedeur Sanders really struggles. I guess this is probably one of those situations where I'm getting too caught up in a contrarian narrative around a team where you can see not only not a downside, but an extreme upside, where with not great running back play, or certainly not established running back play, certainly we're enthusiastic about what Dylan Sampson can potentially provide, and also think that Jerome Ford is a fine back. But this could be a team that's actually pretty aggressive passing. We know that Joe Flacco has had some moments, better moments really as an old guy than a young guy, in terms of driving, pass-oriented offenses that move the ball in that style that we always talk about with Fitzmagic and those types of things. And then once they're ready to go to Gabriel, I just think they're going to throw it. And maybe he makes mistakes, but I think he's going to be able to get the ball out to someone like Judy, which you didn't see for the whole first half of last year. So this is probably a little bit of a situation where I've boxed myself into thinking about one scenario and not the other scenarios. But Ben, I guess I just feel like even if I'm wrong at this price,
yeah, no,
I don't think
you've
wrong.
done that. I don't think you've done that. I think you explained Judy very well. I'll give another explanation or comment. Jerry Judy had the 6th most receiving yards in the NFL last year, and he's going wide receiver 35. He had 145 targets. Everyone says that was just Jameis Winston. For the bulk of his season, the full first half and then some, he had the 32nd ranked quarterback in EPA and some of those other stats. He spent half the season playing with the worst quarterback in the NFL in Deshaun Watson and still finished 6th in the NFL in receiving yards last year. The people are sorry, I'm overstating how much Deshaun Watson actually played last year. He only played 7 games. He didn't play more than half the season, but he played some with Dorian Thompson-Robinson as well. I've been asked a little bit about.
I've mentioned this before, but according to SIS and the way that they put it together, the 3 quarterbacks with the most negative WAR last year were all Cleveland Browns. We had Watson, we had DTR, and we had Jameis Winston, who, even though he did move the ball, also played really poorly other than that. I mean, think about that. You've got 3 guys who all managed to create more negative WAR than either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I think you explained the Judy thing very well, but I've been asked a lot about AI in fantasy football. I've been sent some things. I was doing a home league and we were doing an auction. Jerry Judy came up and I was joking with my one of my very best buddies. And he was kind of, doing last minute preparation through, he's a tech guy who's using AI to just sort of help, but he's just laughing at himself about it a little bit. And so we're having a good time. And he shares with me what they said about Jerry Judy after he bid up Jerry Judy and got him. And he said, what the AI was telling him was that this is Jerry Judy's last chance in 2025 for, to really have a breakout season. And I'm like, it's so funny. AI gets that because that's the perception of Jerry Judy. That's what people write about Jerry Judy. That's what people say about Jerry Judy. That's what's out there, is that this is the last chance for Jerry Judy. He has not done it. He was 6th in the NFL in receiving yards last season. 6th. He had over 1,200 receiving yards. The only other guys who had over 1,200 receiving yards are all superstars going in the first and the second round. It's absolutely ludicrous that he goes in the 7th round, and we act like you're saying you're only looking at one narrative. He played half the season with the worst quarterback in the league. You've said before all the quarterbacks that he's played with before Jameis Winston have all been terrible. I went back and dug into that a little bit, used the RotoViz AYA app to do it and wrote about it in off-season stealing signals. The guys that he's gotten all the targets from in his career are basically Russell Wilson when he was playing really horribly, and then all terrible players. Brett Rippon for a long stretch. One of the guys he got a lot of targets from, Deshaun Watson, obviously played very poor football. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's on this list. Can't remember the other guys. Drew Lock,
Drew Lock. He's got a ton of targets in his career from Drew Lock.
These guys are terrible. And people look at his yards per out run and his efficiency and say it's not good enough. It's still very strong is the other part of it. The knock on him this year is it was all routes based last year because he did run a career high in routes. Going into last year was that he can't run enough routes. He's too fragile. He's too banged up. He goes over his 3-year high in routes by like 250. He's 2nd in the NFL in routes last year, which is signal. Jamar Chase was 1st in the NFL in routes. Jamar Chase per routes numbers are not as good as like CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson. The fact that he ran so many routes is very relevant when you analyze Jamar Chase. We do have to contextualize per route stats. I'm constantly talking about this when I use these stats. Jerry Judy just gave us a season where his per route numbers weren't just good on low route volume because he was banged up, but instead his per route numbers were a little bit worse, but still very serviceable on massive route volume. He was 2nd in the NFL, one of only 2 receivers to go over 700 routes. And he was 6th in the NFL in receiving yards. And now people are saying it was all routes based, or it was all Jameis, or it was all.
What's the defense that's going in like round 12 of these drafts?
I don't know.
Well, it's the one that he put up like a 48-point game against last year.
That's right. This is the top 10 in receiving yards last year. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas, Drake London, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jerry Judy, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, CeeDee Lamb, Ladd McConkey. Not one of those guys, other than Jerry Judy, went after the 2nd round in the draft that we're currently doing. And he's got Joe Flacco this year. This is probably one of the, you're talking about the Dylan Gabriel stuff. Flacco is one of the best quarterbacks he's had for fantasy value in his entire career. Jerry Judy's going to start week 1. Flacco's going to throw 45 passes. Judy's going to catch about 15 of them. And people are going to be like, he sucks. And whatever. We'll just keep drafting him. I've had enough of the Jerry Judy narrative. I love that you're talking about it like you're the crazy person. You're like, I'm probably just looking at the wrong stuff here. It's like, no, you're not. You're absolutely not. All right, we are back on the clock. Jordan Addison made it all the way back to the 8-9 turn. That's fun.
I mean, this is Addison, Pittman, Scatterboo, and Tootin territory. I mean, it's probably Addison and Pittman, but I do want to at least bring up those other fun names.
Yeah, I mean, I have Tootin and Scatterboo. I have Addison. I mentioned this last night. I still have Downs ahead of Pittman, but the way my ranks go, running back Tootin, Scatterboo, receiver Addison, tier break, Downs, Pittman back to back. I'm very comfortable taking another share of Pittman here, although what I'm trying to articulate to you is I'm also very comfortable taking some more Tootin or Scatterboo or however you want to do that.
Do you have a preference? I think that we're a little bit better positioned to get some guys at the next turn than we were on the previous draft.
Which guys? Because that would
Samson.
matter. Samson. Okay. Then we should take Pittman, right? Pittman's the one whose ADP is rising. He's going to run more routes. I get it. He should be going ahead of Downs probably. I'm going to stubbornly not move him ahead of Downs because why would I?
No,
why would I be anything other than stubborn?
We like Downs.
Yeah. Cool. So we grab Addison and Pittman. Our current roster: Jamar Chase, Travion Henderson, Lamar Jackson, RJ Harvey, Jameson Williams, Evan Ingram, Jerry Judy, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman. Through 9 rounds, 5 receivers: Chase, Jameson, Judy, Addison, Pittman. The 2 running backs: Travion Henderson and RJ Harvey. Both onesies taken care of with Lamar Jackson and Evan Ingram. We do like all of the teams that we draft, but I really like this one. I wanted to get an Ingram share, and when we skipped on Kittle at the 2-3, I was kind of, and I would have loved to take Warren, but he would have needed a slide. He did not. I was kind of earmarking that for Ingram. Excited to get him onto this team. Excited to get some more Judy. We got the wide receiver depth. Ideally, we get Samson. Whatever it is you're reading, you tend to read those things very well. It must be something about the way that the other drafters are acting here on our side of the board. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about the potential to get him. Oh, I guess you're in part looking at the fact that the running backs are sliding a little in this room. Jalen Warren went 8-10. He's an 803. Jordan Mason went 808. He's at 807 usually. Aaron Jones went 805. He's typically at the 702. So these last few running backs that went off well behind ADP. It's been a receiver-heavy room. We hit the receiver position sort of before that closes. It's also been a tight end-heavy room. There's been some aggressive plays at tight end. So the running backs have slid a little bit. Just to update the listeners, because we haven't talked about the draft a ton. There haven't been a ton of crazy picks. Thought it was interesting to see Zach Charbonnet go at 703. J.K. Dobbins at 704. Dobbins goes at 809, typically in the Charbonnet at 712, right at the 7-8 turn. They both went in the early part of the 7th round. 2 guys that we definitely like, and it's interesting to see them going up. Rashi Rice, I wanted to comment on, goes 706 here. I keep hearing from the Stealing Signal subs that Rashi Rice, we might be sly like a fox and take Rashi Rice, and then in the postseason we'll have this top 10 wide receiver. And I'm trying to emphasize, and they want to take him in the 5th round, or I'm trying to emphasize that taking Rashi Rice in the 5th round is going to make it difficult to get to the postseason. I'm not saying it's an impossible strategy to pull off in those formats. I do think I've had some discussions around Rashi Rice in Best Ball and other places as well. I do think people think that it's too easy, or it's easier than it actually is, to navigate a 6-game suspension, even though it's at the beginning of the season. And what I would point to is these high-stakes drafts. We talk about there's guys that go out and get their guys, and there's some creativity. One of the things that we typically see in these high-stakes drafts is that the players that are being grabbed early are typically the ones that you want to be paying attention to and on. The people that are spending this kind of money make smart decisions. They know what they're doing. They understand upside, writ large, as far as the entire group. It's not every single player and every single pick is correct. And some people do it a little bit too aggressively and get a little too excited. I would suggest that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 4th round is a great example of the type of player that's being pushed up, but is a little too exuberant.
I mean, that draft, right? It's McCaffrey, Taylor, Walker, which is incredibly fun. Maybe you just like throw away your 4th round pick on JCM, but that could have been Tyreek Hill. But then it comes back with Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Keon Coleman. I mean, the Coleman one is probably thin, but it's certainly possible. I mean, the Bills still hope that he can be their breakout guy. You look at Coleman, relative to, say, Ricky Pearsall, and you're getting a much better price there. And the Bills are also wide open. But the point there with that team is that, I mean, when you are comparing that to a team with Rashi Rice that just needs a lot more things to go right now, I mean, not that many teams advance. There are 12 regular season weeks, and with the 6-game suspension and the bye, I mean, Rashi Rice is only going to play in 5 of them, and that's, if everything works out well. I mean, how much do you think they're going to get from him in that very first week back? I mean, maybe everything. And certainly if you do get him through, I think you've got to be pretty excited. People have gotten so focused on winning the whole thing that they miss out on a little bit, a piece that I think our buddy Mike Leone, continues to note for people, which is that if you get a lot more teams through, then that very quickly balances out or just completely overwhelms the idea of not getting many teams through, but getting through a super team. In part because even if you have a super team, the other teams you're competing against in the sprint, in the tournaments, what have you, those teams are also going to be good.
That's right. But I was also noting there, just to so interesting occurrence here. I'm struggling to get out words because there's been 8 straight running backs, and most of them have been guys that we like. And so Bashal Tootin goes late 9 there, followed by Braylon Allen, Austin Eckler, Jaden Blue, Trey Benson, Dylan Sampson, Cam Scattaboo, and Ollie Gordon. The 0 RB teams towards the back now starting to hit running back hard. We don't get those followers that we're talking about. When I was talking about Rice, I was also talking to our audience that doesn't play in these formats. And I keep hearing from the Stealing Signal subs, like I was saying, that they want to do this in their home leagues. It's more navigable in your home leagues. You just talked through how in FFPC, it's only a 12-week start regular season, and only 4 teams can advance to the league playoffs, and only 2 get the auto bids to the sprint. But because it is such an upside format, I think people in this side of things also are maybe more strongly prioritizing the idea of having this late season hammer in some cases. I just wanted to point out that in a smart room, Rashi Rice ends up going at 706. And you're saying, like, even at 706, that creates some real roster problems. I keep hearing people want to take him in the 5th. They want to grab Rashi Rice because they're going to have so much production from Rashi Rice when he comes back. As you talk through it, 6-game suspension, week 10 bye, misses 7 of the first 10 games. Even in a 14-week regular season in a normal standalone league where you have weeks 15, 16, 17 in the playoffs, you're missing 7 of those first 10 games. You're getting 7 games in the 14 to try to make it to the postseason. Yes, maybe 6 out of 12 people in your league make it. Maybe 8 out of 12 make it. And if you're in a league where 8 out of 12 make it, I had a subscriber mention that. I couldn't tell them they can't go after Rashi Rice. I get it, especially in that format where there's no bye. You get the 8 seed, you play the 1 seed in the first round. That 1 seed doesn't get a bye. You have Rashi Rice, you're at a pretty big advantage in that case from, relative to what your team was in the regular season. But I wanted to point out that in this high stakes format where there is a ton of money to first, and people are very aware that Rashi Rice, upon returning, has a certain level of ceiling. Everybody passed on him 6 times, and then halfway through the 7th round, and then he finally went between Deebo Samuel and Chris Olave. People have gotten mad at me for where I have him ranked. I have him too far down. I still have him ahead of both of those guys. I have Matir ahead of Deebo Samuel. But I just moved him down further as we were talking through it because I moved him down behind Matthew Golden, who I would have liked to have taken at that turn over Rashi Rice. I don't think you want to be taking Rice in that spot over the potential breakout Golden, who could have a really meaningful first 6 weeks and go on to be a really big producer late in the season as well that maybe is on par with what Rashi Rice is able to do. I understand some people think Rashi Rice is just purely a top 10 receiver. And I think he's going to score incredibly well when he comes back. I do believe that if you give me the truth serum and all of those things. But I think, as I wrote about it in the newsletter this week and thought through it a little bit more, I think there's still a range of outcomes there. And that's been the point that I've tried to drive home, is that people are just ignoring that there's still a range of outcomes there. They want to just believe that there's one outcome, that what we saw in 3 games from Rashi Rice last year is what we're going to see in 16 games or however many games he plays this year. That really high target share that was there and all that production that was fantastic. He was the wide receiver too, but it was 3 games. What he's been able to do throughout his career has been great, and it's also been very small sample, and it doesn't mean that things are certain to be the way that they've always been. They never are in this. That's just the way that this stuff goes. So we didn't get the running backs to come back, Sean. We are 1 pick away, and Rashid Shaheed goes. We do get Luther Burden all the way back to us. Jaden Higgins goes. Makes you kind of wish we had taken one of those running backs instead of Pittman. But we can, there's some other running back paths we can go down as well. Kind of a weird one, but is Ramondre Stevenson still there? He goes after this.
He is.
He is.
But it's probably already to the Keaton Mitchell, Will Shipley time frame at running back, which sort of makes me think we should just go Luther Burden and Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, you can just sit him for a long time with this team.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't refracture his foot, but let's do it. I like that. Well, real quick. Okay.
I'll put Burden in.
Yeah. I hadn't clicked all the tight ends. I was going to say maybe like a Goddard as a tight end 2, but he had already gone. So I don't really have a tight end 2. We're into Okonkwo and Strange territory for me on the ranks. We have Lamar. We don't have a QB. So you go ahead and put Reed in. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really love the Ramondre pick. I have Keaton Mitchell and Shipley in the same tier. I do think we're basically to the running back plays that for us are going to, there's going to be a lot of different sort of scratch offs. We're very dependent on Travion and Harvey. I think the reason that I suggested Ramondre and would have considered a pick like him, or, Sean, I'm starting to get into Nick Chubb a little bit. I know that sounds absurd, but we were into him a little bit last year. He's 2 years removed now. He's so cheap that you kind of get a free look at whether or not it wasn't a lot of rush volume, but he was 5 yards per carry in his final preseason game. It's not like he didn't have any kind of burst or anything in the preseason. There's that one early preseason quote that D'Amico Ryan said, hey, guys, age. And I think everyone in the fantasy community were like, oh, this is so brutal that we can't ever think about Nick Chubb again. His most recent stuff was very specifically D'Amico Ryan's comments that as he's gotten back into shape, he's looked really, really good. They've started to see this other part of him. They said, I've seen him continue to grow and get better since he's been here. You see him get into football shape. It gets better and better each week, especially when we put the pads on. It was like, wow, this is the Chubb that I remember. Physical downhill player. You see him popping some runs. You see still has the explosion and speed that it takes to make plays in this league. He just understands football. Very smart player, playmaker. When you need him to make plays, he's going to keep churning out yards. Very impressed with Chubb. He's a true pro. Hat tip, Coach Peak index on that. I think that's probably overly bullish, and I don't think I would take him at the 10-11. He does go at 11-4. He's been going a lot higher. We passed him in the draft with Pat and Pete and Mike Leone in the 13th, and I've been kind of I loosely suggested him, and we didn't take him, and then I've been kind of regretting that I wasn't very pro Nick Chubb in that spot where we kind of could have used some early season volume. And if you get him later than this, if he's not great, then you cut him and you move on. He provides you an opportunity to see something. But Sean, he's going to have 20 carries in week 1.
Yes. You've got to be pretty bad with the 20 carries to not give you the same type of production that a lot of drafters are going to get from guys like I mean, it's basically the same play as Isaiah Pacheco, right? And Pacheco goes 5 rounds earlier. It's a similar play to David Montgomery in some ways. It's certainly a similar play to Caleb Johnson. I think that Jordan Mason is really good, and I think so. He was one of the guys I was going to ask you about from a projection standpoint, and then our show got to the time where we had to cut it. But I was going to suggest to you that I thought Mason was going to take the bulk of the rushes, and the Aaron Jones path to fantasy viability was to have a really good receiving season, which he could certainly do. Even with that being the case, Mason becomes pretty tricky if you're talking about a shared workload where he's the rushing back. There are a lot of guys in rounds 5 through 10 where the fantasy profile doesn't really work that well, even in the best case scenario. And then you come back to Chubb, and like, even if he's washed, you get a lot of work. I mean, maybe if he's washed, Dameon Pierce and Woody Marks get more than sort of what you're suggesting with the 20 touches. But it's just so important to understand what the actual profiles are, what the scenarios are. I still think that's a very exploitable area of fantasy football, is just being able to price the different scenarios based on understanding the player's profile, his teammates, how the offense runs, all of those types of things. One of the things I did want to mention, Ben, as we kind of move through this draft, was the piece that I will have out on Friday talking about the final priority targets and then how to play them. And one of my big notes from that is that zero RB is harder now because we have this kind of zero RB zombie group where, I mean, once all of those guys get to be so trendy that they're now overlapped with the dead zone guys. I mean, yeah, maybe some of their scenarios are still better, but part of the value of drafting zero RB candidates is that you're getting pricing that really helps you. And I mean, this draft has been a perfect illustration of the sort of zero RB zombies overlapping with the dead zone guys. And I really like the fact that instead of trying to attack that, we've taken the wide receivers.
When you say zombies, what do you mean by that? Give an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, in this draft, you have Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt in the middle of the 4th, but we start to think about Charbonnet's pricing where it's starting to get closer and closer to him actually needing to be the starter. He may do that, right? But you need
Why
him.
do you use the term zombie? Help me understand. The listeners are like,
well,
I think an idiot.
I just think it's fun. It has a parallel kind of meaning to the dead zone element here. I think once you no longer are getting the pricing element that, I mean, we're, infested creature walking that kind of scenario. The ADP just simply doesn't make sense now because pricing the scenarios is the key part of making zero RB work. Once it's no longer a thing where the pricing makes any sense, you can't just look at the name and say, oh, this guy has some cool elements to his profile and could eventually be the starter. I mean, you've got to have it priced correctly with all of those different scenarios in order for it to work over time. I'm not saying that none of these drafters will get lucky and will hit on guys. We see that all the time. The big theme of 2024 was that people hit on dead zone running backs, and now people want to do it again. Will that work over the course of a decade? I mean, it doesn't, which is one of the reasons why we do things in specific ways.
I love that. I thought you were going to tell me something about sucking the value out or something with the zombie. I didn't know where you're going. The
Ripping
teams that I mentioned
there, turning everybody else
zombified
as well.
I like that they're infringing on the dead zone is pretty great. I talked about some zero RB teams in this draft. The one from the 12 added Ricky Pearsall as the 5th straight receiver to Neighbors, Brian Thomas Harrison, Garrett Wilson. Since then has gone Swift and Njoku Kraft, Benson Sampson, and then at this turn went Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy. So double taps tight end, QB, double tap tight end at the 7-8. Because of that, only has Swift, Trey Benson, and Dylan Sampson, who they took at 10-01. We had hoped they'd Sampson would come all the way back to the 10-11 turn. I mean, maybe that will pan out. That may be a little bit tricky maybe a little bit of what you're saying, because we're kind of out of value at running back at this point, which is not great for us either. The Lamb, London, JSN, McMillan drafter came out of it in the 5th, but got Breece Hall as a faller. I don't think that's terrible, but goes Breece Hall, Connor, then Mark Andrews, then back to running back with Aaron Jones, Tootin, then gets Christian Kirk, back to running back with Ramondre Stevenson and Davis. I'd argue probably took too many of the not very interesting running backs to try to hit it with volume. That's a little bit of pulling out of the 0 RB too early. All you have is Andrews at tight end. You don't even have a QB yet. You're not going to probably dominate the onesies. And I don't know that you have enough depth at receiver to be really confident. I mean, especially when one of those Lamb, London, JSN, and McMillan go on a bye. The only other receiver you have on your team is Kirk. So, you're not even in a position where you can clearly handle the flex positions. The team at 11, that was Nico, Puka Nacua, Jaden Daniels, Xavier Worthy went Pollard, Devonta Smith at the 5-6 turn, then ETN, Caleb Johnson, Jaden Blue, Scattaboo, comes back with Marvin Mims and Chiga Konkwo, does have the elite Daniels, kind of pulls out, a little early as well with Tony Pollard. We're on the clock here. I wanted to get your thoughts on those. Maybe we'll swing back around. What are you seeing?
Would probably go Mitchell Shipley here for the massive upside. I do like Isaiah Likely as a potential tight end selection with Evan Ingram, where there's an Ingram-ish quality to Likely's game, and with that Lamar Jackson, if he ends up being the guy, that part could work together. But we know we want to get Harold Fannon. Getting the 2 running backs here is probably important. How are you seeing that?
Yeah, Mitchell and Shipley, the last 2 of a tier for me. Likely would be fine. I have Brent Strange still ahead of him. You mentioned Fannon. I don't feel like we have to get Likely onto this team just because we have Lamar. I was thinking the running backs, and as I was explaining my thoughts there, I think that's where you were leaning as well. You clicked on both. We got Mitchell and Shipley. So Henderson, Harvey, Mitchell, Shipley. I mean, as I'm sitting here kind of talking through the other running back stuff for some of the 0 RB teams, we don't have very much running back production, but you see that even though we took Henderson and Harvey early, we stick with the receiver picks in those ranges, and we have Lamar Jackson and Evan Ingram. I think, a lot of firepower at the onesies, hopefully, assuming that Ingram is, a pretty big hit. Our receivers, Chase, Jameson Williams, Judy, Addison, Pittman, Burden, and Jaden Reed. If Reed is out for an extended time, knowing that Addison is suspended, etc., we still have the potential to score quite a bit of wide receiver points. Just with, week 1, we'll start Chase, Jameson Williams, Judy, and Pittman. And, we'll probably start those 4 for the first 3 weeks. And then when buys hit, we have Addison, we have Burden hopefully breaking out at a point. We have Jaden Reed hopefully contributing at a point. And we're just going to be starting the rookies, Henderson and Harvey, and being comfortable with the fact that they are going to get some catches. They are going to have enough of a floor early on to play them. I've been answering that question as well from the home leaguers. Can you start TreVeyon Henderson week 1? I think so. I think he's going to catch enough balls right away in PPR to be very startable. I believe the same for Harvey, frankly, in terms of the Broncos throwing to the backs enough. So those PPR points are usually nice, and then hopefully they have some explosive plays early as well. What did you think about those 0 RB teams I was talking through, the ones in 8, 11, and 12? Who do you think executed it the best? Who do you think has some problems? The 2 of them went pretty heavy at running back starting in the 5th. Both the 8 and the 11 started drafting running backs in the 5th and took 4 out of 5 in their next 5 rounds. So the 7, 8, 9 range, a lot of running backs in those ranges. The 12 hole didn't take one until the 6th, then went 2 tight ends, then takes just 2 more than 2 quarterbacks. What do you think about those options?
Team in 12 is pretty fun. We were really wanting to get that Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas start yesterday, but Genty, who went 104 here, fell to us, and so we took that path instead for the second pick. I think that Marvin Harrison is overvalued, but certainly the ceiling path is still there for him. We've articulated the issues with Garrett Wilson, but at the 401, he's very good. to go 401. We discussed Ricky Pearsall. You have a 5 receiver group that could potentially accomplish what we always talk about, which is getting ideally 6, but 5 top 15 wide receivers. You could do that with those players. You look at DeAndre Swift, if you're purely talking about week 1 touches, he's a little bit undervalued. So that potentially helps you there. Then Njoku and Kraft, 2 of our favorite tight ends, they probably fit pretty well together. Njoku was a faller in this draft, falls all the way from the 6-7 turn to the 7-8 turn. When you're on an edge and it's so difficult to handle positional runs and to get value, and you get him to come to you, that's just manna from heaven. You're very excited about that. And then Benson and Sampson are 2 of the best 0 RP picks and not as inflated as a lot of the other guys. So from that perspective, it executes really well. I might have liked a bigger swing than Brock Purdy with the second QB pick, but certainly with the double taps, you have the ability to actually be good at the onesies, which you mentioned is an issue for some of these other 0 RB teams. I think that team is going to be thin, but it's also a team that has a path to the veritable super team that we're always talking about. The drafter out of 8 has that miracle run through 4 and arguably through 5, but then I don't know what Christian Kirk does for this particular build. I don't know what Ramondre Stevenson does for the build. Aaron Jones, I'm not sure what he does for the build. Ray Davis, we've debated him a little bit. At least there's a ceiling outcome there. When you take the four receivers and then stop, we always talk about that as being an issue. When you come back with lesser running backs, you give away all of the value that you got from starting wide receiver time 4. And I think the Kirk pick exaggerates that. Now, if Christian Kirk hits, we're not riding everything. So if Christian Kirk hits, then you're in a little bit of a different situation there. The team out of 11, you're talking about Collins, Nakua, both of those guys with just slightly different circumstances could be like the 106 to 107. Don't have to convince us on Daniels and Worthy. Tony Pollard is not our player anymore, but he's the guy where you look at him and you're like, if Cam Ward moves the ball at all, then what's the difference between him and Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams, other than he's more explosive than those 2 guys? Dante Smith is a great value. And then the running backs. Caleb Johnson is not someone who has probably the right profile to target, but as a potential breakout rookie, you go all the way through that team. That team looks very good. I've mentioned before that Brenton Strange is sort of a poor man's Tucker Kraft. It's a bit of an odd pick to me because Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter are going to be so big in terms of soaking up the targets there. Likely with the breakout makes more sense. He just does go. Yeah, I would have drafted those teams slightly differently, but I certainly really like some of the things that they're doing.
Makes a lot of sense. We are quickly approaching being on the clock here again. And then I know you have to get going, I think, before the end of this draft. So I may be solo potting it the rest of the way. Maybe we'll be able to finish it. I think you have another close to 15 minutes or so. Not quite.
Well, we'll see how many picks we leave Ben with if he comes back. Even with the receivers that we have here, I've walled him off a little bit from going like Coker, Lambert Smith, Malik Washington, Jalen Royals.
But I'll just take Trevor Etienne and not Jarquez Hunter.
There you go.
Oh, you're gonna love when this team has like Roshan Johnson on it. No, I'm kidding. It's okay. I'm just joking.
So we get Adam Thielen in round 14.
Thielen goes. Franklin went. We have all the receivers. I'm trying to look at the running backs. For me, it's probably Brashard Smith at this point. I still have Tyjae Spears ranked high enough to consider, but the 4-game IR thing, probably we need to move him down a little. Taj Brooks. I have Woody Marks, but he went. Yeah. Woody Marks went. I knew I'd seen his name. Kendre Miller is the next name after that for me on my list. Trevor Etienne, and then Jarquez Hunter. If you want to pull Hunter up, I mean, we could do that. But I think Taj Brooks, Brashard Smith seem like fun plays. What are you thinking here?
I was thinking Smith Fannon.
Oh, yeah, Harold Fannon. Likely, Strange. Mason Taylor went in that round. Yes. Yes.
And it's just a completely made up thing that I like to say. No actual connection to what's going to happen when the season starts. But in my mind, the team that drafts Harold Fannon wins every draft. We just made a very crucial pick.
Yeah, it's like the Benjamin effect that I think Blair's written about, right? Where he had the really high win percentage in a year where he didn't score any points at all because the smart drafters were drafting Benjamin. They were otherwise drafting really good teams. I'm with you. Harold Fannon drafters, they know ball, generally speaking. And
you've sort of broken my heart there by explaining that, yeah, our team is probably going to be good, but Harold Fannon is going to be Benjamin.
You said it had nothing to do with what's going to actually happen in the regular season. So that was my. Oh, wow. Did Micah Parsons get traded? It did. He did. Micah Parsons has been traded to the Green Bay Packers. Parsons and the Packers already reached agreement on a 4-year, $188 million contract. This was tweeted by Adam Schefter 13 minutes ago.
What'd they give up for him?
It says the package just a minute ago includes 2 first-round picks and a frontline player. But, I mean, this is breaking enough that people who are listening to this later are going to know more than we currently know. That was the post 1 minute ago. So a frontline player going from the Packers back to the Cowboys. I'm interested to know who the frontline player is, obviously. And Micah Parsons already has a full statement that's been released and Schefter's tweeted out, which is several paragraphs long. So man, the Cowboys are going to throw the ball so much. Their defense was already going to be, a little suspect, but not having Micah Parsons is going to make it a little bit more problematic. This is somebody just took the Green Bay Packers defense in the middle of the 15th round. Amazing. I love that. You might as well react to the news, right? I don't know that I would take them that high, but I want to go see who they're playing week 1.
It would be pretty amusing if the frontline player is Josh Jacobs.
That would be incredibly amusing. I don't believe that'll be the case. I was thinking Jaden Reed with all this discussion of, Jaden Reed doesn't care about his. Says he's going to play through injury and all this stuff. Maybe the team is not. I mean, he's the one that's sort of. Who else would it be? Probably different defensive player, potentially. Newest, highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. It's a $47 million AAV, according to Adam Schefter's tweet here.
And as we're heading back toward the 16-17, and I prepare to let you go after that selection, what positions are you wanting us to attack? What names do you have out there in addition to a Taj Brooks, whom we hope makes it back to us? Jatavian Sanders has gone, which is interesting goes to the team that did the 0 RB start you're talking about and now has Okonkwo, Strange, and Sanders all in the same unit.
The player coming back is nose tackle Kenny Clark. First round pick in 2016. Interior defensive lineman. I'm not actually sure how good Kenny Clark really is, to be completely honest with you.
Todd Brooks does go to the team that started running back ×4. So that one is disappointing.
3-time Pro Bowler, Kenny Clark. There we go. I thought he was pretty decent. You're trying to draft the team. I'm trying to talk about the Michael Parsons trade. We have 5 picks left. I mean, whatever you leave for me is going to be fun for me to navigate however I decide. We'll tell the people one more time that tomorrow we will be doing a Big Gorilla Marathon on the RotoViz Radio YouTube channel. I do think you should do the closing here, and I'm not going to sit here and talk by myself. And then, I mean,
you're going to rob the listeners of.
Well, who's going to wish them? Who's going to tell them that we love them and to have a good one? I mean, they need you to tell them that. How are they going to go out the rest of their day?
I'm pretty excited about this 16-17 turn, to tell you. I am trying to figure out if we can sneak a defense in here with some of the players who are gone. At this point, I'm not 100% sure how much static I'm going to get from this Jarquez Hunter selection. Then for me, this is Jarquez Hunter, Pat Bryant. Am I way off base?
Marvin Mims is I mean, I do think it's interesting that we get to have the Jarquez Hunter discussion on every draft because nobody else wants to pick him. It's only you. It's not just me that doesn't want to pick him. Pat Bryant goes. Marvin Mims is hurt. I was going to say that the Pat Bryant thing actually made a lot of sense to me. There's apparently a groin injury there.
I think we Philadelphia defense.
No. I think we need running backs. I think we should take Jarquez Hunter at this point. He's actually near the top of my list at this point. I have him behind Trevor Etienne, but I think I would also take Etienne here unless you see something else. Tyjae Spears has gone. I have Etienne and Hunter as my next 2 running backs. We can definitely take Hunter, knowing how high you are on him. This is a price where we should get exposure to him. The second pick becomes a discussion of do we want to take one of the flyer receivers like a Malik Washington? Do we want to go, like you said, we could do an elite defense if you want to do that. What are you going to say?
I think if Etienne is our next target, that he will make it back to you for 18,
That's right.
19. So I guess I would go Philadelphia defense, but I am open to any of Washington Royals, Lambert Smith, open to Pat Freiermuth.
No, leave me those picks. That's a good point. There's a bunch of different receivers I can go ahead and grab one of them or whatever it is that I determined to do. Let's take the Eagles defense. I think that's a fun option.
Awesome. We get the defending champions to start the year. We can back out of it if it ends up not being a high-scoring play. Ben's going to grab us some more good picks down the stretch. We are really excited to share.
Let's give them the final team real quick. We went Chase Henderson, Lamar Jackson, RJ Harvey, Jameson Williams, Evan Ingram, Jerry Judy, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman, Luther Burden, Jaden Reed, Keaton Mitchell, Will Shipley, Rashard Smith, Harold Fannon, Jarquez Hunter. Take the Eagles D there. There's 3 picks remaining, very likely to be ETN, probably one more wide receiver, even though we did take several earlier. I'm probably not going to take a QB2. I'm probably going to tack on another running back with that. Oh, sorry, we got to take a kicker. There's a possibility I go running back late. Probably running back, receiver, and a kicker. But what were you going to say? We're very excited to what?
We're very excited to share the marathon with folks tomorrow. Again, that's Friday starting at 11 Eastern. If that's already passed, check out the stream, check out the show. Have a happy Labor Day, everyone. Hope you get to spend it with friends and family and doing cool stuff, and maybe occasionally drafting some fantasy football teams. This has been Stealing Bananas. I'm Shawn Siegele. With me is Ben Gretch. You know where to find our stuff. We'll be with you again soon. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.